This week, we'll be going over the shortage task in Escape from Tarkov. This is the first task available from the therapist, and it's one of the first item collection tasks that people can usually get held up on. There are a few tricks to getting it done though, so with this guide you should have no issue getting it completed. And now, let's get into it. So getting started, like I said, shortage is the first task available from the therapist. You can go over to her in the vendor list and accept this one immediately after starting the game after a fresh wipe. And this task is for finding 3 found in raid Salewa first aid kits and turning them in to the therapist. These being found in raid means that you have to go into a raid, pick them up, and successfully extract with them for them to have the actual found in raid checkmark. If you put them in your alpha container or gamma container, whichever you have, and then you die, you might have it in there once you get back to your hideout, but it will no longer be found in raid. This is where people can get stuck for a bit, but you can also craft these in your hideout in the level 1 med station. That'll be the easiest way for you to get these found in raid, but we'll get into that process a little bit later. The rewards for this task are 2000 XP, plus 0.03 therapist rep, 15,000 rubles, which will scale if you have the Intel Center built, but I'd be surprised if you're doing this task that late in the wipe, 4 painkillers, 4 AI2 medkits, or cheese, and 4 aluminum splints. With, of course, the added bonus of knowing that the medkits are going to a good cause. Sure it is, therapist, sure it is. So let's first go over some of the spots where you can usually find Salewas on some of the maps that you typically start off running quite a bit. Over on Customs, there are a couple of spots near Big Red that have medical spawns where I'll usually look. The first being over here in the storage area. There's a car over here where you can open up the trunk and find a medical bag that can spawn a Salewa. Then over near Big Red on the side by the main road, you can come into this small blue building for a med box. Then way over here on the other side of the map, we have this medical building referred to as Crack House. In here, there are a lot of potential spawns for Salewa, but specifically where I've seen them in the past are over here on the first floor near the door closest to the fortress. And then on this side of the second floor with the large room of medical shelves, you can generally have them spawning on the shelves or maybe right below them. And fun fact, you can use part of the Salewa if you need to because you can still turn it in as long as it's found in raid and has at least 1 durability. And honestly, that's the only map that I would really recommend going to actively look for these as a PMC, because you can do it while going after all of the other early level quests that are also on Customs. There are some good medical spawn areas to look for these on the other maps, but the only one that I'd actually kind of recommend doing early on are interchange scav runs. If you do that, you can run over to Mantis and hope that it hasn't been looted, as this area has plenty of medical spawns. But this is a hot spot on the map for both PMCs and scavs to go to, so I'm sure it'll get cleared out pretty quick. There are also some other spots on the map that are decent but require keys, so it's kind of hit or miss on if you'd actually be able to check them this early on. But one lesser known or at least lesser looted spot would be any of the ambulances that are on the roads. I personally always find at least one of my Salewa that I need from one of these ambulances whenever I'm doing these scav runs. And then on Reserve and Shoreline, they have some similarly decent spots for finding them, but these are even hotter spots than Interchange, so early wipe, I don't recommend trying to hit those up unless you're pretty experienced with the game. And at that point, you probably wouldn't even be watching this task guide in the first place. So now we've gone some of the good spots that I'd actually recommend for finding these Salewa kits in raid, but what about the other option, crafting them? Well, as we went over earlier, you'll need to have your med station level 1 built to have the option of crafting these. So you'd go into your hideout and over to med station 1, where the requirements to build it are 50,000 rubles, 1 disposable syringe, 1 pile of meds, and 2 aseptic bandages. Of course, the bandages you can buy from the therapist, but the other 2 items are pretty common if you hit the med spawns that I laid out earlier in the video. If you loot that crack house building once or twice, you're bound to get these items. Just make sure that you shove these into your container if you find them, because even if you die, and they aren't found in raid, you can still use them to construct that facility. So long story short, if you still have this task left, you better be hitting Crack House. So then once that facility's built, you can start crafting your Salewas, or at least however many that you need that you haven't already found. And this is by far the best way to consistently finish out this quest and should keep you from getting stuck on it for too long. And with that out of the way, why don't you go check out my Escape from Tarkov task guide playlist, or whichever video of mine YouTube recommends.